The concept of a separate household budget struck my husband as quite sensible and modern. He had no inkling of the upheaval it would soon cause within his own family. When his mother arrived for a visit and flung open the refrigerator door, her indignation knew no bounds. "Son, why is the fridge empty? Where's the food?" She flitted about the kitchen in utter bewilderment, while her beloved son looked at his wife with confusion. "Darling, why haven't you prepared anything for Mom's arrival?" Hello, dear listeners. I'm delighted to welcome you to my channel. I present to you a new, intriguing story. Enjoy listening. Larisa Mikhailovna detested long train journeys, but visiting her son necessitated precisely that. She didn't own a car, and a taxi to their suburban home would be prohibitively expensive. She was already anticipating crossing the threshold, removing her uncomfortable boots that had rubbed her heels raw, and sitting down at the table where Katya, her daughter-in-law, had undoubtedly already laid out plates laden with homemade pies, salads, and a hot dish. Katya always welcomed her mother-in-law with grand preparations, cooking as if expecting not one person, but an entire delegation. Pavel opened the door. Her only son. He embraced her and kissed her on the cheek. Larisa Mikhailovna stepped into the entryway, shed her jacket, and looked around. The apartment was clean, smelled fresh, but not of food. Odd, normally the aroma of fried onions, baked goods, or stewed meat would waft from the moment one entered. "Where is Katya?" she inquired, heading towards the kitchen. "Katya is in the bedroom. She'll be out shortly," Pavel replied somewhat uncertainly. Larisa Mikhailovna pushed open the kitchen door and froze. On the table sat an empty fruit bowl. The stove was spotlessly clean. She approached the refrigerator, pulled open the door, and gasped. Inside, only a bottle of ketchup, a packet of butter, and a solitary cucumber, clearly nearing its last days, were visible. "Son, why is the fridge empty? Where's the food?" Her voice rang with indignation. Pavel stood in the doorway, scratched the back of his head, and glanced away. "Well, Mom, you see, Katya and I decided to switch to a separate budget." Larisa Mikhailovna's eyes widened. "A separate budget? Whatever for?" "Well, it's modern, isn't it? I spend my money on myself, and she spends hers on herself. No one owes anyone anything. It's all fair and square." Her mother-in-law felt her blood begin to boil. She scurried around the kitchen, opening cupboards, peering into pots. Everything was bare. No grains, no pasta, no bread. It was as if no one lived in this apartment at all. "Are you serious?" She turned back to her son. "You've been married for 8 years. You have a child. What kind of separate budget is this?" "Mom, well, this is my decision." Katya agreed. Pavel was already starting to get annoyed. At that moment, Katya emerged from the bedroom. She wore sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, her hair haphazardly pulled into a ponytail. Her face was devoid of expression, a picture of calm bordering on indifference. "Hello, Larisa Mikhailovna," she said in a level tone. "Katenka," her mother-in-law exclaimed, rushing towards her. "What happened? Why is there no food in the house?" "I arrived hungry," she thought, expecting the usual abundance. "Darling, why haven't you prepared anything for Mom's arrival?" Pavel interrupted, looking at his wife with a slight reproach. And then Katya looked at him in such a way that even Larisa Mikhailovna involuntarily recoiled. "Because my budget is allocated for myself and for Lyova," she replied quietly but very clearly. "I buy groceries for 2. My son and I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You yourself said that from now on, everyone is on their own. So, I'm on my own. And for my child, who, by the way, is also mine." Pavel opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "What do you mean for 2? He mumbled. "That's exactly what I mean. You wanted a separate budget. Here it is. I spend my salary on groceries for myself and Lyova, on his clothes, his classes, his doctors, on everything else too. Your salary is yours. Mine is mine. It's fair, isn't it?" Larisa Mikhailovna slowly sank into a chair. She suddenly understood that something serious had happened here, but she hadn't yet grasped the magnitude of the catastrophe. "Wait," Pavel said, running a hand nervously over his face. "I didn't say I wouldn't eat at home at all." "But you said you would," Katya parried. "You said a separate budget. I took it literally. If you want to eat my food, let's discuss how much you're willing to contribute to the common pot. I calculated, it costs about 35,000 rubles a month for 3 people, give or take. If you want to eat with us, contribute half, 17,000 and change. Pavel turned pale. Are you out of your mind? This is my apartment. The mortgage has 10 years left, of which I'm paying exactly half. Katya crossed her arms over her chest. So, no excuses. The apartment is ours, and we pay equally. But I buy the food myself because you decided we're going to have a separate budget now. Katyusha, dear, Larisa Mikhailovna interjected, trying to smooth over the sharp edges. What are you doing? Men have always been the providers, but that doesn't mean— Larisa Mikhailovna, Katya interrupted, a steely edge to her voice. Your son decided to play emancipation. I'm just playing along. He earns 80,000, I earn 50. Previously, we pulled everything into a common budget, and I managed the household, bought groceries, cooked, did the laundry, cleaned, and took care of Lyova while he sat playing his tanks in the evenings. Then he declared he wanted a separate budget. I agreed. Now, I spend my money only on myself and my son, and you know what? I've even started managing to save money. Pavel stood there, red as a beetroot. That's not what I meant. And what did you mean? Katya asked in an icy tone. That I would continue to handle all the domestic chores, and you would save up for a new computer? A heavy, oppressive silence descended. Larisa Mikhailovna looked at her son, then at her daughter-in-law, and a picture began to form in her mind. She suddenly saw everything differently. Katya had always been a good wife, resourceful, caring. But Pavel, it seemed, thought he could get away with it and end up with the lion's share. But Mom is here. Pavel attempted to play on her sympathy. Then feed Mom. Katya shrugged. I didn't invite you. I didn't even know Larisa Mikhailovna was coming. You didn't tell me. How is it you didn't invite her? She's my mother. Your mother, your responsibility, your money. Separate budget, remember? Larisa Mikhailovna felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She had always considered Katya compliant, easygoing. But here was this young woman, showing her character. And most offensively, she was absolutely right. Fine, I'll go to the store now. Pavel grumbled and reached for his jacket. The nearest one closes at 10. Katya called after him. You'll make it if you run. Pavel slammed the door. Larisa Mikhailovna remained seated in the kitchen, feeling superfluous and out of place. Katya poured herself some tea and took a cookie from the cupboard. It was hidden behind the grains in the farthest corner. Would you like one? She offered her mother-in-law. Thank you, she mumbled and took a cookie. They drank tea in silence. Somewhere in the room, the sound of a child's laughter could be heard. Lyova was watching cartoons. A normal child, cheerful. Larisa Mikhailovna suddenly realized she didn't even know what her grandson was interested in, what he liked, what he dreamed about. She had always visited to see her son, viewing Lyova as an appendage to her visit. I'm sorry, she said unexpectedly. Katya looked up. For what? I always assumed that you were supposed to do everything by default, because you're the wife. Katya gave a slight smile, but without malice. Everyone thinks that, even Pavel. He genuinely believed he could announce a separate budget, and I would continue to feed him, wash his socks, and iron his shirts, because that's how it's supposed to be. And you decided to teach him a lesson? I decided to live honestly, Katya corrected. If it's a separate budget, then it's a real one. I won't pretend everything is fine while I'm being taken advantage of. Larisa Mikhailovna nodded. She felt a sense of respect for this young woman, a feeling she had never experienced before. Katya didn't throw hysterics, didn't cry, didn't threaten divorce. She simply took matters into her own hands and did precisely as her husband's rules dictated. Pavel returned an hour later, carrying bags of dumplings, sausages, and bread. His face was sour. Larisa Mikhailovna realized her son had spent a considerable amount, and he didn't like it. He silently cooked the dumplings, and the three of them ate. Katya only emerged from the bedroom to retrieve Lyova and feed him separately with her own pre-prepared meal. Larisa Mikhailovna watched this unfold and felt guilty, though she wasn't sure why. That night she lay on the sofa in the living room and heard them arguing in the bedroom. Pavel hissed something, and Katya replied calmly, almost emotionlessly. Larisa Mikhailovna understood that interfering would be futile. This was their battle, their rules, their life. The next morning, she left without witnessing any reconciliation. Pavel saw her off to the train station, sullen and silent. Katya didn't come out of her room at all. In the following weeks, Larisa Mikhailovna called her son regularly. At first, he answered briefly and irritably. Then he began to complain. It turned out Katya was holding firm to her word. She bought groceries only for herself and Lyova. She cooked only for the two of them. Pavel tried to sneak food from the refrigerator, but Katya had designated a separate shelf and attached a lock to it. A genuine combination lock on a refrigerator shelf. Mom, she's completely gone wild. Pavel whined into the phone. Yesterday, I ate a cutlet she had prepared for Lyova's dinner. So, she sent me a bill. She said the cutlet cost 120 rubles, accounting for the ingredients and her labor. Larisa Mikhailovna remained silent. She didn't know what to say. On one hand, she felt sorry for her son. On the other, he had brought this upon himself. Pashka, maybe that's enough, she suggested cautiously. Tell her you were wrong, that you want to go back to how things were. I told her, Pavel wailed. She replies that a separate budget is a wonderful idea and that she's very happy with this arrangement. And you know what's the most offensive part? She really is happy. She's become somewhat happier, maybe. She walks around smiling, plays with Lyova, but she doesn't even offer me tea. Can't you make yourself some tea? I can, but she used to offer it to me. Did she used to pay you for it? Larisa Mikhailovna asked harshly. Pavel fell silent. A month later, Katya herself called her mother-in-law. Her voice was calm, even warm. Larisa Mikhailovna, I wanted to apologize for that reception. I felt awkward that you left hungry. Katyusha, you are not to blame for anything, she replied honestly. It was my son who made a fool of himself. I wanted to tell you that Pavel and I have discussed everything. He agreed to return to a common budget, but now we have an expense sheet and we both know where the money is going. Pavel saw how much I spend on household expenses, on the child, on the house. He was in shock. And what did he say? He said he didn't realize supporting a family was so expensive. Katya chuckled. And I told him it's not expensive. It's normal. He just didn't count it before because I was doing it. Larisa Mikhailovna felt pride for her daughter-in-law and shame for having once considered her obligated to do everything simply because she was a wife. Come visit us next weekend, Katya suggested. I'll bake you a real apple pie, just how you like it. Thank you, dear, I will. And Larisa Mikhailovna came. The table was laden with a lavish spread, and Katya glowed with happiness. Lyova ran around, giggling. Pavel was quiet, subdued, but no longer angry. He helped his wife set the table, brought plates, and wiped up the juice their son had spilled. At the table, Larisa Mikhailovna raised her glass. To us all, understanding the value of care and thanking those who make our lives comfortable. Katya smiled, and Pavel nodded. Lyova shouted, "For Mom!" and they all laughed. After dinner, while Katya was putting Lyova to bed, Pavel stayed with his mother in the kitchen, meticulously and diligently washing the dishes. You know, Mom, I was a complete idiot, he said, not looking up from the plates. You were. Larisa Mikhailovna agreed. I truly thought a separate budget was cool and modern, that we would both be free. It turned out that I just wanted to save money on my family and keep the money for myself. It turned out that way, she nodded. The first month of that separate budget, Katya saved 15,000, Pavel continued. 15,000. Because before, she used to spend it on little things for the house, on more expensive groceries, on treats, but then she simply stopped doing that and a lot of money was freed up. And you were left without dinner, Larisa Mikhailovna chuckled. I was left with nothing, Pavel admitted. I didn't even know she did so much. It turns out shirts don't iron themselves, food doesn't cook itself, and the apartment doesn't clean itself. Katya did all of this every day, and I thought it was supposed to be that way. Many people think that, said Larisa Mikhailovna. And I thought so too, until your father left and I was left alone. That's when I realized how much he did, even though I thought I was the only one carrying the entire household. Pavel wiped his hands and sat opposite his mother. You know what's the scariest part? A friend at work recommended this separate budget. He lives like that with his wife. And it seemed honest to me. Everyone for themselves. But I didn't think Katya could take it literally. I thought she would continue to do everything as usual, and I would just spend my money more freely. So, you wanted to get all the benefits without any drawbacks? Larisa Mikhailovna summarized. Yes, Pavel sighed. I was selfish. Katya showed me that very clearly. Katya appeared in the doorway, wearing pajamas, her hair loose. Lyova is asleep, she announced. Larisa Mikhailovna, I've made up the guest room in the living room. If you need anything, just say so. Thank you, dear. Larisa Mikhailovna stood up and hugged her daughter-in-law. Thank you for not letting my son get completely out of hand. Katya laughed. I stood up for myself. It just so happened that it benefited everyone. That night, Larisa Mikhailovna lay in the darkness, thinking about how for so many years she herself had lived in an illusion. She believed that a wife owed her husband everything by default: cook, wash clothes, bear children, raise them, work, and still be grateful for being married at all. But that's not true. A family is an equal, fair partnership. If someone invests more, that should be valued, not taken for granted. 2 years later, Larisa Mikhailovna visited her son again, but this time she was met by a different home. Pavel himself was cooking dinner while Katya was at work. He had learned to bake and was proud of it. Lyova had grown, started first grade. Katya had launched a small online business selling children's clothing and was now earning more than her husband. But that was no longer a problem. They contributed equally, maintained a common budget, and planned their expenses together. Mom, sit down. I made a roast. Pavel smiled, taking a baking sheet from the oven. Larisa Mikhailovna looked at her son and rejoiced. That conflict over the separate budget had turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to their family. It forced Pavel to grow up, Katya to stand up for her boundaries, and all of them to learn to respect each other. At the table, they talked about plans, about the future, about the new car they wanted to buy on credit. Katya showed her mother-in-law photos of the new clothing collection. Lyova talked about school. Do you remember the day you came and the refrigerator was empty? Pavel suddenly asked. As if I could forget. Larisa Mikhailovna chuckled. That was the scariest day of my life, he admitted. I realized I could lose my family because of my own stupidity. You didn't lose it, Katya said gently. You simply finally found it. Larisa Mikhailovna looked at them, a lump in her throat. She was happy. Happy for them, for her grandson, for how everything had turned out. Sometimes you have to fall to learn to walk. Sometimes you have to go hungry to understand who fed you your whole life. In the evening on the train ride home, Larisa Mikhailovna looked out the window at the passing lights and smiled. Life is a strange thing. Sometimes the most unpleasant situations lead to the most correct decisions, and an empty refrigerator can be the beginning of a truly honest family.